Welcome everyone to another video of Small Business Treasury. Today, I want to be talking about a very important topic. A question that I've been asked many times is, are wires reversible? And this is a very important topic because there's a big misconception that I see in small businesses thinking that banks have the ability to reverse wires if and when a mistake happens. And the truth is that wires are considered real-time gross settlements. And in short, what that means is once it's been settled in the beneficiary's bank account, it is considered irreversible. It's very unlikely for a bank to participate and coordinate with the other bank to reverse those settlements from the account once it has been settled within the recipient's bank account. So many times small businesses think, oh, if I don't complete the full account number, or maybe I put the wrong account number, or maybe I can reverse a settlement that I've sent to someone accidentally. They think that they can get those funds back through a reversal. And the truth is that it's not, because it's not ACH. ACH has the ability to submit a dispute where the bank can submit a dispute with the beneficiary's bank, and they can communicate with one another to reverse a transaction during an ACH settlement. However, when a wire is settled into the bank account, it is considered irreversible. And once the recipient has access to those funds from their bank account, it is unlikely for you to recover that if they decide to withdraw. So I have some notes here that I want to go over in today's video and talk about more in detail why this is very important for the small business owner, you as a founder, the CEO, to be aware of, because this is going to help implement better strategies in your treasury department and your accounting department to make sure that nothing in that process allows for mistakes to happen, right? So the reason why treasury is so important in small businesses and growing businesses, and definitely important in large corporations, is because we understand that once a wire has been released from the remitter's bank account, so the individual submitting and releasing the wire, once it has been released, the chances of recovering those funds is almost impossible. So I'll go ahead and get into the notes of my topic today. So what is a wire transfer actually? A wire transfer is a direct bank-to-bank transfer, and it's considered real-time settlements between banks. So this is typically processed through FedWire, and once the funds are credited to the beneficiary's bank account, the beneficiary is able to withdraw those funds almost immediately. And once they're able to withdraw those funds, it's nearly impossible to recover if they decide to withdraw. Unlike an ACH, where if you ever look into your bank account and you see an ACH settlement and it says pending, or it shows 1 or 2 days until fully released, that is an ACH. And the reason why that's available is because if there's a dispute, the bank who has sent the funds can recover that in the event that is needed. But with the wires, it's considered final. Once it arrives in that bank account, they are available for withdrawal. And many times, if it's a fraudulent activity going on and the individual, the vendor, the criminal requesting a wire settlement, it's because they want to be able to access those funds immediately and not have to deal with the settlement process. Because obviously, if it's a fraudulent activity, if they can get access to the funds immediately, they can go ahead and withdraw those funds and spend it as they wish. So it's very important as a business owner for you to be aware of the difference between ACH and a wire, and the difference between settlements between an ACH and a wire. Because once a wire has been released, the ability to recover that becomes nearly impossible. So in addition to that, the importance of having strong treasury protocols in your organization is because if you implement certain steps and procedures within your organization when it comes to activating wires and uh, releasing wires and making sure that everything is followed properly, you reduce the risk of being a victim to fraud, and you also reduce the risk of making an error, right? So many times during an ACH transaction, if you mistype an account number or you accidentally to send it to a different account number, Because it's an ACH, you can submit a request with the bank and say, hey, by the way, I caught this later on after it was released, and it turns out that I mistyped this account information, or I accidentally sent it to a different vendor that I was intended to. Can you go ahead and please put a dispute to reverse the ACH? You typically can do that internally, but as a small business, you don't have access to full Treasury products and services unless you request it from your bank. So you have to go through your banker. But with a wire, because everything is very detailed and it's settled immediately, if you mistype a wrong account number and it goes into the wrong individual, and then that wrong individual notices that they have received funds, they can go ahead and withdraw it immediately. Now, there's a whole legal process after that. If they decide to withdraw funds and they spend it and it doesn't belong to them, and it turns out that they were knowingly spending capital that didn't belong to them, there's legal proceedings to that and they can get, prosecuted. However, there's a whole unnecessary amount of work and effort that is going to go on your end as a business owner to try and recover those funds. So we want to avoid those things from happening, because the whole point of this channel is to educate small business owners and founders and chief executive officers and the C-suite to make sure that you are proactive and not reactive when it comes to these small details in Treasury. Treasury is so unique in its field because it takes very little time to prevent things from happening, but they'll save you tens of thousands of dollars in the long run, right? So let's put an example. How long does it take for you to understand the importance of having a strong treasury department with its, and in this example, we can link it together with the accounting department. So a strong accounting department with strong treasury protocols and policies that make sure that it crosses everything in that checklist when you're sending a wire, to make sure that you're sending it to the correct individual or the correct vendor, the correct corporation, to make sure that whenever you do process wires in the future, you're not going to have any issues, or for the bare minimum, you reduce risk as much as possible. But if you don't have those policies in place, what ends up happening is that that one small mistake could cost your business thousands of dollars. Now all of a sudden you're chasing legal fees trying to recover those funds. You're trying to hire lawyers to try and prosecute the organization that received the funds and they decided to spend it and not return it. So it causes a huge mess. It's a huge domino effect between not being proactive in your organization, and it's your responsibility as the business owner and the chief executive officer to make sure your CFO or your head of accounting is following strict treasury policies, to make sure that whenever they're processing wires, they are following good, healthy checks and balances and procedures, things that multi-billion-dollar companies follow on a daily basis when we process wire transactions. For example, on my day-to-day activity, I process wires very, very frequently. And when I process a wire, I have a very strict step-by-step process that I must follow and that my analysts must follow. And everything must be checked 2 or 3 times. And everything must be reviewed 1, 2, 3, 4 times. And then we have to request certain documents from the vendor requesting the wire. We cross every single line item to make sure that we minimize as much as possible to sending wire transactions to the incorrect individual. And we process anything from $10,000 wires to $100,000 to $6 million wires to $10 million wires on an ongoing basis. So it's our process is what saves organization from being victims to fraud. And it doesn't matter the size of the wire, whether it's $5,000 or $50 million, the process remains the same, because we make sure that our process is to protect the company's capital. That is the most important thing that I want to educate in this channel, is to protect the capital that you worked very hard to obtain. It's very difficult to earn $25,000 to products and services. Imagine losing that to an incorrect uh, or a fraudulent wire activity because your team didn't have the proper policies and protocols in place to prevent that from happening. It's significantly cheaper to prevent things from happening than to fix them after the error has occurred. I always say it's a lot cheaper to just prevent it from happening, having good, healthy treasury protocols in place, than to learn through experience and then having to spend so much money because somebody completed a wire incorrectly. So it's very important. It's your responsibility as a business owner, the founder, to make sure that your team is well trained, that you have a good checklist in place. You need to be consulting with your CFO and ask him, hey, what are our treasury protocols? How do we initiate a wire? What are the step-by-step processes? I want to understand where our gaps are and how can we reduce those margins of error. Treasury and payments and banking is all human error. So everything at one point or another, if something goes wrong, is because human error was involved. If there's a typo in the account number, there was a human error. If there's a typo in the amount sent, human error, right? So you have to have segregation of duties, which cross-checks one another. Manager, analyst cross-checks each other. Analyst prepares, manager approves. Director releases. Segregation of duties, because it keeps people accountable to make sure you're minimizing as much error as possible. So in a wire, unfortunately, once it has been released and the funds are credited to the beneficiary's bank account, if they decide to spend, you cannot recover those funds. Many times, business owners think, oh, well, the bank will cover a loss if something happens. No, that's not how Treasury functions. The bank only covers if it's an error on their end. If it's a user error, a business owner error, they do not cover those funds. So I'll give you an example. If the bank accidentally sends $200,000 instead of $100,000 from your bank account, they can cover the error because it was an error, user error. It was a bank error. But if it was committed by the individual, meaning you accidentally sent $100,000 to the incorrect account, the bank will not cover those losses because it was a user error. You signed off on the wire, you sent the wire, and you didn't have proper treasury protocols in place to prevent error from happening. Okay? The bank is not going to cover that. That falls on the business owner, and now you're down $100,000 for sending an incorrect wire because there was not proper protocols in place to make sure that you minimize the error as much as possible. So keep that in mind. The bank is not going to cover errors that are done by the user, by the business owner. It is your responsibility as the founder, the CEO, the chief executive, the leader of the organization to make sure that your CFO has proper, strong protocols and policies in place to prevent things from happening, right? So I can get into more detail about the specific checklist that we use at a billion-dollar organization when we process wires, but that's a video within itself. It's very long. We have very strict policies in place. We have to make sure that everything is perfect before we release anything. And it's healthy to explain these things to small business owners because it doesn't matter the organization. When we process wires, the process is the same, whether it's 10 figures or $5,000. It's the same process because we understand the risk between sending wires and knowing that it's irreversible. So anyways, that's all for today's video. If you have specific questions that you want me to answer in my videos, please drop them down in the comments. It helps me create more content for y'all. I want this to be educational. I want to help the small business owner. I understand the pain it is for business owners to be victims to fraud, to be victims of errors and not being fully aware of the strength of Treasury protocols. So please drop a comment and let me know if you want me to answer anything else.